allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Dean Rister.
Here.
Bill Boylan.
Yes.
Bryce Steiner.
Yes.
Jason Franks.
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
And Brian Smith.
Yes.
Okay. Moving into minutes were recorded last month, so we'll move into the finance reports and bank reconciliation report. Everybody's had a copy to review it. There's no question, I entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Do we know why
Go ahead.
do we know why the RITA increase was so much? Was there like
Well,
a backlog of payments or something?
There was this, there is, and sometimes it comes in May or April, but that is due to, so there's a monthly reconciliation, and then at the end of the year, if they overcharge, they pay back, and I think it was about $3,000 or $4,000, if I recall correctly, or it was positive.
Yeah, it was significantly higher, so that's
Yeah.
good news.
So,
Almost double. I mean, we approved.
Second.
motion on the floor to approve the finance report as submitted. Dean Reister,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith. I'm gonna pass around those for you guys to sign as received. At this time, we'll recognize Tim Copsey. He has to be put on the agenda for the economic development.
Mayor Reeb, we'd like to present all the council with a couple rolls of tape and say thank you for sticking with us in Paulding County Economic Development.
Well done.
So I've got one for all of you.
Use, I promise.
Thank you for what you do. I know you guys take a beating at times on social media. I know that it's not an easy job, but thank you all for your time and effort that you put in here. And here, you know, Kevin's doing Brown Township with us as well, and Brandon's helping me in Cecil. So it's not just this village that's being helped by this group, and greatly appreciate all you do. The development out south of town has gotten,
I'm gonna steal a pen here.
sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah, yes, I can't.
Now we have to reset the clock.
The development out south of town, at this point in time, they're planning on just planting that for this, you know, for this year. And then they'll look at into the fall when the harvest comes off, unless they have something demanding that comes in. They aren't to a point yet of where they're ready to just start turning dirt. With that though, we are having meetings. I meet with them monthly now, and they are having meetings on their own. And the next thing is, the first piece is what? Everybody wants to know how much per acre, right? Second thing is, who's gonna supply the infrastructure? And the third thing is, how are we gonna fund that? So as the incentive question starts to come forward, I would hope that this group could do some forward thinking in what we're looking at doing. I know Brian and I have discussed a couple of things, but I think as a group, it should be being discussed in the background. Can you bond $1 million to be paid back over time through the group? Do we want to do a TIF? And those TIFs can be regulated in different areas. It doesn't have to be the whole complex all at once. I just think those are things that we need to start thinking about and looking forward to as these questions arise and we start to get input. We have the hotel study going on for the county, and you know, there will be some pointed ways as to what that looks like is the need and demand, but also then I would assume that there will be some pieces in there that say, hey, this could fit in this development, or it may not fit in this development, it may fit in some other development in the county, but I think we can use that as a guide. We should see that by the end of July, and from there, we'll start getting that out to all of us as constituents to understand what that looks like and how we can help. We haven't had anyone jump through hoops yet to say we want to put a hotel there, this is our group, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that have said, you know what, I would like to discuss this further when we see the study. So we're excited about getting that done and moving that forward. Brian Keller has purchased the Dana building out there on the east side of town, and he is already doing extensive work in figuring out exactly where all the water lines are and what sizes they are, how much electricity he has there, and where those electric lines are. Just a lot of study stuff that you might not see anything action-wise taking place too much there for a while, but there's a lot of action going on in there. We toured Paragon Tempered Glass in the boot camp last week, and man, they've got great things going on. You know, at one time they had laid off here around the holidays, and they brought refilled some of those spots. So things are going well out there. And then the land bank, we've got, you know, some properties here in the community that we've got on the list, and they should be having some meetings with those property owners to get some properties remediated. Any questions for me? Well, I hope I dressed appropriately, and I thank you for taking the time.
Appreciate
Appreciate everything you do, Tim.
Thank you for everything you do, Tim.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was gonna go out and buy some.
Moving on,
Thank
there
you.
was a copy of the police report in your council packet. George is out of town on training, so he's not at the meeting. And Ashley did provide a EMS report that I had on the desk for everybody prior to the meeting. Moving on, is there any committee reports? If there's no committee reports, we'll move into the fiscal officer report. First item on that I have is resolution 2025-11. This is an emergency reading. This is a resolution authorizing the village administrator to apply for public works grants related to the Canal Wentworth Water Line and Storm Improvement Project and declaring the same an emergency. Brian, do you need to speak on this at all, or?
Not unless there's a question. It's all, a lot of these unfortunately are emergencies simply because of the timing and no other reason other than in order to hit the timelines required for filing for the grants.
There's no other questions for Brian. I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules with 3 readings.
I move we suspend the rules, 3 readings.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules with 3 readings on resolution 2025-11. Dean Rister,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
Okay, now I would entertain a motion to adopt.
I think there needs to be a change in that headline. Wentworth is not spelled right.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Bryce, in the future, if you catch something like that when you review it, would you possibly let us know so we can have the corrections made prior to the meeting?
Yeah, I didn't see it until
Okay.
just today.
I can make
But
that,
yes.
I will make that correction on.
I mean, we can still approve
We can
it.
still approve it, and I'll make that
With that
correction
correction.
before we scan it to the website.
Yeah.
Any other problems? If not, motion to adopt.
I move we pass.
Second.
Who's that?
Jason.
Jason. Okay. Motion to adopt resolution 2025-11. Dean Reister,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
Okay, moving on, we have emergency reading of resolution 2025-12. This is a resolution authorizing the village administrator to apply for and enter into water supply revolving loan account, WRLA, or WSRLA agreement on behalf of the village of Antwerp, Ohio, for planning, design, and/or construction of the water facilities, designating a dedicated repayment source for the loan and declaring the same an emergency. Any questions or comments? If not, entertain a motion to suspend the rules of 3 readings.
What is this on an emergency for?
Timing.
Same as.
That's what I was gonna ask. I think just as long as we're clarifying so people know that we're doing these for timelines, deadlines, and those kinds of things, I think, that's, would be my only question about it.
I'm going to suspend the rules.
Is there a second to Bill's motion?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings on resolution 2025-12. Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yeah.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
I'm sorry, now we would entertain a motion to adopt.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-12. Brian Smith,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
Moving on, we are to emergency reading of resolution 2025-13. This is a resolution authorizing the village to enter into a roadway maintenance agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation and declaring the same an emergency. Questions or comments? If not, entertain a motion to suspend the rule of 3 readings.
I could not find Exhibit A in my packet. That is cited in section 3.
Yeah, I didn't get a copy of that to put into the packet.
I'm not sure what that says.
Did I have that, Brian, or do you have something?
I don't have it. I'm not sure what exhibit A was.
I'm sure it's around the show little dot.
It's either that or it's a signature page.
I believe it's the agreement itself.
Let me see.
Yeah, it's the contract.
I don't know that I ever got it. I mean, I don't show any attachments.
He would send it to me on May 21st. I must have got the report.
Okay.
Can you want to print it out, or if you're attached to the Wi-Fi, you should go print it on the printer. Should be the Rico 6, I think. Or if you email it to me, I can print it. Print out.
I just have to email it to you because I don't think I'm there.
You say if you have
You say it was
an
on
iPhone,
May
you can airdrop it to
21st?
me.
Yeah.
Can I send it?
Yeah.
And Brian might be able
Is
to
that the potential truck traffic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Don't print that out, Brian. While we're doing that, do we want to move to the next item once we get copies of that made? I'll let Roy review it.
I mean, it was reviewed by council, so. I said it was reviewed by council, so. I'm not sure what we're gonna find other than everybody have a copy.
make a motion that we suspend the rules.
Motion by Bryce to suspend the rules, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules with 3 readings on resolution 2025-13. Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we have entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2025-13.
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-13. Jason Franks,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith. Brian, does the mayor sign this or do you?
It's, make it just have the mayor sign.
Okay, moving on to emergency reading of resolution 2025-14. This is a resolution authorizing the village to purchase Paulding County Auditor parcel number 12-26S-011-00 from D&L Properties of Antwerp, Ohio LLC, and declaring the same an emergency.
And just to let everybody know, this is directly related to the one we just passed, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's the,
And
yes.
to let you also know that the work on 49 and this house and that corner will be done this year.
And when you say 49, you mean 49 from north to south?
Beginning to end.
Okay, okay.
They'll come in and grind, repave, and of course the house will be gone. I think they're going to, they thought they had to remove one tree. I think they may end up having to take a couple of the big trees down. But then, so we'll have
They're
that.
redoing it all the way.
Yep, all the way through town, from end to end.
Really nice.
That corner.
I told them that you wanted it done, Jason, they said, okay.
I wish I had that much power.
Me too.
This,
I just you for other things.
the amount being spent is coming, is it coming from our general fund, or is it coming from assistance from economic development or anything like that?
Half of it would be from the village general fund, and if,
What? Are we taking from the village fund, or are we gonna do it from the capital outlay from the, we've got that money in the,
when I say village, or the
you say general
general
fund,
fund.
you're saying the village funds,
Yeah,
but I'm just saying.
I mean,
it'll
that
probably
you'll
come out-
designate the fund.
It'll come out of the fund for capital improvements for the village, which is
Okay.
basically like the money that we get from the sale of the property of the depot or something along those lines would be used towards this purchase.
Okay.
And then, provided the CIC approves tomorrow night, they will cover 50% of the cost of the purchase price.
And if they don't approve it?
Then we won't move forward.
Okay, so we are
I mean,
contingent upon them also
Yes.
doing this simultaneously?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean,
I think that's the plan from the CIC.
yeah,
Like, we've already-
I
Yeah.
generally think the CIC is gonna do it. And originally, when I came to you in executive session and we discussed this, I asked that we have 65,000 available. I have a quote, I had a couple quotes, but the low quote was 10,000 to remove the house and turn it to dirt. So with our share of the purchase price and the removal of the house, we'd be at 64,500.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules of 3 readings.
I will suspend the rules.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings on resolution 2025-14. Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
and John DeVore.
Yes.
Move to approve.
Is there a second to Dean's motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor to approve, resolution 2025-14. Dean Reister,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
Brian Smith.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. The next is the emergency reading of resolution 2025-11. As I had mentioned last month, I got behind the 8 ball, and we have to have these approved and done before August 6th. So in order to get this done, that's why this is an emergency, so we can get it to the Board of Elections before the August 6th, because obviously next month's meeting is still not going to get us through to the 3 readings. So this is a resolution to proceed with the submission of the question of levying a tax that is a replacement of an existing levy in excess of the 10 mil limitation for the purpose of maintaining and operating the cemetery and declaring the same an emergency. And again, it's just putting this on the levy or on the ballot, and the voters will then decide if they want to move forward with the replacement levy.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll second.
So Brian Smith made a motion to suspend. Dean Rister. Motion on the floor to suspend the rules of 3 readings. Brian Smith,
Yes.
Dean Rister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2025-15.
And just a question on this. This is a replacement levy of the same millage.
1 mil was down there, yes, it's just.
And it'll just do it at the current rates
At the
of
current,
property
current
values.
value rates, yes,
Okay.
of property.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve this
To adopt.
2025-15.
Bryce Steiner
Second.
and Bill Boylan. Okay, so there's a motion by Bryce. and Bill Boylan. Motion on the floor to adopt resolution 2025-15. Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
Yes.
Dean Rister,
Yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
John DeVore,
Yes.
and Brian Smith.
Yes.
Moving on to emergency reading of ordinance 2025-10. This is an ordinance requiring proof of insurance be presented for the village-owned real property before real property can be used for events hosted by third parties and declaring the same as an emergency. I believe the reason, Brian, correct me, or Brandon, this is an emergency just to make sure that we don't have any issues with our current insurance policy, correct?
Yes.
For time consideration.
Yep, and I can speak to this a little bit. Brian and I talked a little bit after the last meeting when we had all discussed this, and I think potentially what we may do going forward, I've been researching a couple of local cities and villages that have an actual special event plan in place with permits, that include proof of liability insurance, but also some other items that may be a better kind of organized approach to this. So I have kind of tentatively put something together for council to consider as a normal ordinance, 3 readings, everything like that. But with the summer events coming up, I thought that this was important to get something in place until that is something the council can consider to pass.
Could I want to speak on this for a little bit, and I want to pass these out. And the reason I want to is because we already have this ordinance on the books. And we passed it already. It is Ohio Basic Code 3602, which we passed at the beginning of the year, which specifically states that it has to be done. And what it looks like is, and what our current one is lacking, is, because the one that was proposed is lacking, it does not have a permit, which I actually have attached to page 2. My suggestion would be is that we attach this to where people have to fill it out, that releases the liability from the village, which currently the one that's written in here does not do. Also, this is a resolution instead, because we do already have it on the books and we already voted on it earlier this year when we adopt the Ohio Basic Code under the each year it's already in there. And it already says how much the insurance has to be, minimum. It also says, this resolution, that we would be held harmless, and they have to do it a minimum of 15 days prior to the intended use. Being a resolution instead, because we do already have it on the book, just clarifies that they do need to do this, and two, they have to have a permit. But I wanted to email it out to everybody, but with our communication that says, hey, don't email stuff out to people, I didn't feel like I could. So I'm bringing it here now.
You could, it just becomes public record.
Yes. Yeah, okay. And I probably should have done that. But when I was reading it, it's actually fairly easy to find. And I couldn't imagine that we didn't have it on our books before, over the years. And then I found it. So, but anyhow, it basically says the same thing as what the ordinance has, just enforces it and says they gotta fill out a permit. And I can email Brandon or Kevin or anybody the file that I typed up, so.
And this has been since when, the beginning of the year?
We approve it every year.
No, Ohio Basic Code is approved every year.
Yeah, Ohio, it's
included in that.
It's a continuing, that we follow the Ohio Basic Code. And American Legal Publishing puts that out with all the updates. We basically approve the updates each year. Is that correct,
Have we been
wording?
holding people to a permit, or?
No.
But that way they would have to sign
I think
off.
some of them were already providing it, so I don't know that we were, because I mean, I know like
That's
the
correct.
ACDC was providing theirs, I'm pretty sure Dana Park, so I think people were providing it, maybe not filling out the paperwork, but were providing the information or whatever, so.
Which makes sense of why they were, because we already had it on the books.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just
Maybe
now,
it's best just to have you, Brandon, review this and table it until next month and see if we need to change it to a resolution or anything, or?
Well, I got an event this month that's providing the insurance and bought the policy. Based on
well,
the assumption this was going to probably
Yes.
pass tonight.
Which would be still.
It's still under the Ohio Basic Code then, correct?
that is correct.
Right.
So we wouldn't have to have this new ordinance unless unless we're requiring more than what the Ohio Basic Code requires.
From just a paper issue, I don't think a permit is necessary. We have a calendar, unless you provide this documentation, you wouldn't be on the calendar, you would not have use of the property. So,
What it does do is it signs off that people do not go after, that says they are responsible though.
I understand that, I'm
Yeah,
not,
and
I'm
it
not
could be
saying,
modified, but yeah.
I'm not saying,
Because I think
maybe
that
I'm
was our issue.
misstating what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, they certainly should fill this out.
No,
Must fill it out in order to have a reservation.
Right,
Okay,
right.
going
That's what you were
forward,
speaking to.
I'm just saying, an actual permit issued by my office, I don't want
Correct.
to get into.
Absolutely,
that.
just something that releases the village of liability with a person's name on it.
Basically, they're just.
Which is what this
application
does-
I
waiver.
think that's what Brandon was talking about when he spoke a little bit, wasn't it? It was about trying to.
Yeah, that was the point I wanted to get to.
Mhm.
Now, in a quick review of this, I see no problem with it. I mean, everything is the same essentially except for the hold harmless and having an application.
That's correct, that's I just incorporated everything that was in here into that with holding the village harmless and this paper that says you gotta sign off.
Right.
So could you review it, and then we make it part of an emergency for a packet next month?
Yes. I see no problem with
To do it as a resolution
Is
instead
that-
of an ordinance. That's,
Yeah,
that's,
you-
is that what you were?
Because
Yeah, just presenting it because I know we have an event, but we are covered for
Yeah.
that
Well,
now in 36.
What I'll do is as long as this form is acceptable, I'll just start utilizing that in my office. And then once we have the resolution, we can just staple the two together and give it to people.
Yep, that's fine with me. Yeah, this looks fine, so I think we can use that going forward.
Okay.
Table this until next month or whatever. So we wouldn't have to do it as an emergency then, we could do it as 3 readings if we do a resolution, since there's something already on the Ohio Basic Code. Or do we not even need to do anything if it's already in the Ohio Basic Code?
I guess what I'll say as far as anything further, I can review that section and see, kind of compare it to what I've prepared already.
Yes,
Because I think, I don't know, because I haven't seen this, but I'm gonna say that what I have been working on might be a little bit more in-depth
Mhm.
and tailored to the village specifically, which I think might be a good thing. And I think everything in this is already included in that hold harmless agreement, release of liability, and the $1 million per occurrence insurance. So taking this, kind of morphing it into what I already have, will be a good thing. So I think that's the direction to go, if everyone's all right with
You
that.
just said you want me to email you the file that I have started?
Yeah. Yep,
That way you don't have to copy and paste or
You wanna
either
send it to me, I'll get it over
modify
to
it.
you.
Yep.
Okay, after the meeting, just give me your email address you want it sent to, or I'll do it right after the meeting.
Okay.
So, I guess we're just gonna, this one failed due to. Moving on then to the first reading of ordinance 2025-08. This was revised with the changes, we're gonna have a first reading last month, but we made some additional changes to the amounts, I believe. So, this is an ordinance amending section 2 of ordinance number 2000-19, establishing a schedule of fees, charges, expenses, and collection procedure for zoning permits, amendments, appeals, variances, conditional use permits, and other matters relating to the administration and enforcement of zoning in the village of Antwerp, Ohio, and regulating the fees paid to the zoning inspector for services.
Is this considered our second reading then?
No, because we made those changes, so it would be the first reading with those with the changes in it.
Okay, even though they were mentioned last month, but.
Don't you have to have it have to be presented the way it for it to count as a reading? Okay, moving on, we have the second reading of ordinance 2025-09. This is an ordinance renaming a portion of Stone Street in the village of Antwerp, Ohio, spanning from the intersections of Stone Street and South Main Street to the intersections of Stone Street and Erie Street to Bourbon Street. Okay, and then the next thing we have is first reading of ordinance 2025-11. This is an ordinance amending section 311 of ordinance 1976-16, the zoning ordinance of Antwerp, Ohio, to add further business classifications to the permitted, conditional, and accessory use table.
I have a question on this. When was the public hearing and when was the public notice?
Well, it was after the first reading, isn't it? Yeah, the first
That's what
reading.
I'm asking. If we vote on this, does this cause this to go into effect? Or is this, because we haven't had the public hearings yet, as far as I know. Is that correct, Bill?
Public hearing is after the first reading.
So this is the first reading.
Okay, I just want to make sure that,
First reading.
Yeah, so this isn't passing, we just,
Yeah, it's
Right,
first reading
right.
is done.
yeah.
okay, I just want to make sure that we're doing this correct.
So that's all I have for the fiscal officer report. We now move into old business.
Well, I have something in old business. Last month, the zoning board had approved an ordinance, and I presented it last month on the commercial motor vehicles, recreational campers, as far as parking at night. Has there been any movement on that? I didn't see it in this month's agenda.
Yeah, so Brian, I think we discussed this, and I think you said that you had talked with George about that situation, and then also.
You talking about trucks parking in the parking lot?
Right.
Yeah, we ordered signs, and we've got them, we just haven't got them up because we needed signposts, it turned out. But they, George told me what to put on them. It's either no overnight parking, no truck overnight parking, because it's already in the basic code. And he says, with the signs, I can enforce it. He says, don't put anything there about idling, because he said, you know, if they're sitting there at noon unloading milk, he says, in theory, I got to ticket them for idling. So anyways, he told me what, and so we got the signs. George says, we don't need an ordinance because it's already in the basic code anyways, so you can enforce. So they're gonna put one sign at the entrance of Dollar General, and then one, he talked and got approval from the dollar store, or Family Dollar, to put one at both of their entrances. So it's taken care of. It will be taken care of as soon as the signs come up. But they went and picked up the signpost today, so.
Any other old business?
Working it up with Buffalo Street.
Mailed the letter, certified to the property owner as well as the business owner. I received confirmation back from the postal service that the property owner signed for their certified letter.
I received back the notification that the individual signed.
Both, so they've both been notified.
I haven't heard anything. I assume she moved her business towards Hicksville and
So hopefully this is resolved.
Should be resolved.
certainly hope so.
I haven't gotten more emails.
Okay.
Just relative.
Any other old business? If not, we'll move to new business.
I have something on new business, and I think that we need to be keeping minutes. Somebody came to me today and asked about where the minutes were. And afterwards, I said, well, we're recording them. And it got me down a rabbit hole then. And I started reading about it because it was mentioned in the February meeting that the Ohio Sunshine Law Book states that we do not have to keep minutes. That's what was stated at the, well, I went back through then and read the Ohio Sunshine Law Book, and it says you have to keep minutes. And they also gave a state Supreme Court ruling that stated, and this was in their citations, that recordings are not valid as a primary source of records. This was in, so here it is. We have the Supreme, or let me just hand you a few of them over there. It's in the Supreme Court that recordings do not count. And so it specifically states that they must be prepared in a timely fashion. And everywhere I looked, the word minutes always meant that they were recorded on paper at the time, but what it was added, and may have been confusing, is that they could be on other media. And what it's referring to is it could be stored on the cloud, the internet, sunshine, thumb drives, whatever, paper. When the law was written in 1972, that's all that we obviously didn't have the recordings that we do today, but the court case took place in 2001. And this is a resolution that I prepared that specifically addresses the situation, because we're already supposed to be doing it according to the Sunshine Law Book and Ohio 121.22C. If there's anyhow, I wanted to provide that to you, and it kind of surprised me when this person came and told me, and because I just believed what we were told, and it's actually very clear, because it's actually about a city council that was just recording their meetings. So, I mean, if you want to vote on it, you can, but I would suggest that Brandon review it.
Yeah, Brandon already reviewed, but I'd say let him look into this too.
Yeah,
See.
I think this
I
was,
can take another
the law obviously was written before most of us were born.
Mhm.
And so the meanings of words were maybe a little different today than they were then, so we have to go with their intent then. But it is pretty clear.
Yeah, it surprises me because I specifically researched that section and didn't find this case. And also, the auditor state has given official guidance to municipalities saying that they can record minutes however they want, as long as they're recorded.
It says as a secondary, it could be,
Okay.
in the Sunshine Law Book.
Okay. Yeah, I can certainly take a look. My suggestion was that we, at least for a while, keep them written anyways, just for technical difficulties, but.
It makes it very difficult to search
Okay.
by not having paper. And I know a lot of us actually questioned it in February when I went back and watched the video, because just devices record, none of them translated when they came up in the transcript correctly. And one of the items that the Supreme Court said was you could not tell who was speaking, which is the same issue that you have in even a transcript from YouTube, but it also couldn't spell Antwerp right or our street names right. And that's just kind of typical of where our technology is currently at. But being able to go back and search minutes is certainly easier than watching videos and guessing.
Why don't we have Brandon review it, besides make a decision and let us know?
I have something else for new business. I'd like to ask the village administrator to post public hearing for next month, for the zoning, for that ordinance 2025-11. So we have a public hearing on that before we go to the second reading. We'll be at our regular zoning board meeting date and time.
Oh, during your regular meeting?
Yes,
And it's a public hearing?
yes.
And what was the subject matter again?
As was adding further clarification to our zoning book.
It does give specific sections in there, the table specifically.
Any other new business?
Yeah. I want to inform everybody, we had some openings on the appeals board and the planning commission board, and I have filled them. The appeals board, I appointed Dan Lehman and Derek DiMancio, and for the appeals board, John Ganger. I'm sorry, yeah, the appeals board.
That's
The planning commission is John Ganger. So presently, our appeals board is Tom Bandolera, Keith West, Dan Lehman, Jason Horman, and Derek DiMancio. The planning commission is Bill Boylan, Mark Greenwood, Matt Horman, John Ganger, and myself. And I'd like to have council's approval for those appointments.
I'll make the motion to approve your appointments for both boards. Just go ahead.
I'll second all those.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to approve the mayor's appointments for both boards. Bryce Steiner,
Yes.
Brian Smith,
Yes.
Dean Reister,
Yes.
Bill Boylan,
yes.
Jason Franks,
Yes.
and John DeVore.
Yes.
I just want to mention on camera, I know we talked about it, but good job to the ACDC for Antwerp Days. It was a really good event, good weather, good times, busy up there. So thank you to them for putting that on. Appreciate it.
Just a couple of things. We passed the resolution for authorizing to enter into a revolving loan agreement with the DEFO, utilizing the WSRLA revolving loan fund. It was posted yesterday that they take, it's a short time frame when you apply, and they take and they list all the municipalities that are awarded money, and then they list if any amount of money is converted to debt forgiveness based on the economics of the actual municipality. So we were notified yesterday that we were awarded $8 million. Unfortunately, 100% of it is a loan, zero debt forgiveness. So, what, 475 or
438,000 or something a year or something?
yes, if we borrowed the whole $8 million, our payment would be about $430 to $475. It all depends on whether you're making 2 payments a year, 1 payment a year, 12 payments a year. I mean, so I'm not sure. I did it, calculated at 1 payment annually for 30 years, and it was $475,000. So I reached out to Representative Kloppenstein and talked to Roy early this morning, and then I communicated again with him this afternoon. I sent him some thoughts and some numbers explaining where the village is at based on its general fund revenue versus expense, its water fund revenue versus expense. And I said, you can tell between the two that we couldn't even make the payment. And so, working with Maumee Valley to look at other grant fundings, OWPC, we could get $1 million. CDBG, we could get 750,000. I'm going to contact the Northwest Regional Director for this loan next week. She'll be in the office, and ask her to explain how we were not given any grant funding in it because we're economically depressed based on our low MI index. I'm sure she's going to say that, well, you don't have any findings and orders against your water plant. I said, well, give us a couple of years, we'll catch up. I mean, we're at that point where, it's over 50 years old and things are failing. I mean, the guys are doing a great job keeping it going, but it will not continue forever.
Are they looking for Boyle order advisories? Would that help? Stuff like that?
Well, there's no way you're going to get a Boyle advisory in this village based on the loop system that we have. You don't have enough actual residentials to qualify. So that's why you won't get one, because our system is segmented and stuff. So, I mean, talking to Curtis, he said, you're just not, unless you have multiple failures in the village, you're just not going to get to that point. So anyways, that is where we're at. I was hoping for a better result, but we'll just continue to do the work. I have notified Jones and Henry to put the program on hold. We are, we're completing what the state required of us. And this is the last piece that we needed. And I will forward that via an email to engineering tomorrow. But I told them that we were going to go out to bid starting June 16th, but I told them, don't go out to bid. I said, we don't have a mechanism to pay, so there's no reason to. So I'll start working with the state and seeing what we can do to come up with other avenues of grant funding.
Are we looking at cap or rate increases?
We can't even get there with increases. I mean, even if we double.
We're only about halfway to where we need to be. At this point, with where we're at. You'd have to double the rates.
After we did the Jones and Henry survey last time, they came back with their recommendation on how we was gonna get there, and that's why we did the tap rate that we did. Which we thought was gonna get there. I know the cost had gone up, but
Yeah, the cost has gone up.
We was that far off the mark back then?
The cost was projected at the time, and remember, this all began 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Okay, so at the time, the estimated engineering cost was 5.2. It's $8 million now. So
That's why we're about halfway where we need to be.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Well, Brian, you said about
3 more years.
the million and the 750,000 that you could get. Is that something that we could get annually to make the payment?
No, that's a one-time only. They don't do annualized. But and there's other avenues. There's a group we call them SCAG, but it's SEIG, and it is one individual from every funding mechanism, whether it's state or federal money, that meets quarterly in Columbus. So I have presented half a dozen times before them. And you go down and you make your presentation and you explain everything. You provide all the data in advance so they have a chance to review it. And then you just go through and say, USDA, do you want to give me any grant money? And you go down the line and you just write down if anybody's giving you money. And then instead of having to go to all these individual agencies, you just do it all at one time. So it's actually very effective. But we're looking at filing to go down and make the presentation down there. So
When's that?
you just have to, I don't know when, they meet quarterly, so I don't know if it's the first week of October, I don't know if it's the first week of July, and it depends on their schedule. They only take so many meetings. But I've been fortunate enough to do it half a dozen times. So. And then we're filing the paperwork. We approved the ability to seek grant funding for Canal Wentworth. Canal Wentworth will be put on the county CDBG critical infrastructure program for 2026, and I think that's about 350,000. Engineering on that came back at 1.9 million. And we will be looking at other grant funding opportunities, but I had to have that in order to move forward. So that's consumed a lot of my time.
Good news.
I'd like to add one thing. The placements that I made, all of those gentlemen had applied for the council seat. So I chose from them. They showed an interest in the town and I used them, so.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Any other new business? We'll move to the mayor's report.
For the month of May, the total to the city was $812. The state was $637.50, with indigent driver $25.50, with a total of $1,475.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Everybody signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.